Two separate federal juries found Donald Trump liable for sexual abuse and defamation and awarded E. Jean Carroll, his accuser, nearly $88 million in total across the two cases. He appealed both, and now the Justice Department that he controls is investigating E. Jean Carroll, his accuser, for allegedly making false statements in depositions during those cases. The same cases he lost horribly and got hit with hit with $88 million in total verdict. It's not a perjury case or something. This is actually a blueprint for how you use the federal government and you abuse your power to go around and punish people that dare to speak up against you. And we're covering that today. We're covering this investigation. We're covering the retribution of the Trump regime. I'm Sean Kernick, and I'm joined by Brian Kabatek, my law partner and co-host on another installment of Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. Before we jump in here, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel so you can support us and the great team on Legal AF. Brian, so let's give a recap on what happened in the underlying cases and talk about what Trump is doing now with his DOJ that he's weaponized.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, Sean, that if every time, you lose a case or every time that something goes bad in your life, you just have people prosecuted, that would pretty much have a chilling effect, wouldn't it, at the end of the day? I mean, that would be like, hey, I'm not going to sue that guy because I don't need the problems. And, I know what that can do to people and what happens if they have that kind of fear. And that's why we have guardrails put up. All right. So I think the facts of this are pretty well known. And I don't think we have to spend a lot of time on it. E. Jean Carroll claimed in a lawsuit and won, so a jury found it was true, that she had been sexually assaulted by Donald Trump many years ago. And she came out and published an article or wrote a story about this before, I believe, the second election, before the 2020 election. And this story got a lot of airplay at the time. And Trump said some pretty, nasty, mean things about her, like not my type, take a look at her, things like that, right? And so she sues and she files two separate lawsuits. One involves the sexual assault itself. And then the other was the fact that Trump just wouldn't shut up about defaming her. And that was the second lawsuit.
Denying it. He kept denying it in his lesson. So a separate defamation lawsuit there too. And the 2023 jury found him liable for sexual assault and defamation to the tune of $5 million, which was already pretty big, right? And then a separate 2024 jury in a separate case found him liable for defamation over his 2019 denials of all of this. And he got hit there with an $83.3 million verdict. So that's nearly $88 million. Both upheld by the Second Circuit. I don't know if you mentioned that already, but both have been upheld on appeal. So it's not like, this is still pending or it's out there. But both of those got hit. So now there's
and let's take a little side trip on that for a second, Sean, because this just popped into my little pea brain. Is that he's now appealed these to the United States Supreme Court. In fact, the Second Circuit Court of Appeal did something that's called staying the judgment, meaning he doesn't have to pay until the Supreme Court hears it. And so now, just correct me if I'm wrong, these are justices of the Supreme Court that he just invited to dinner with the king.
Yeah. I mean, that's not
the people that are going to rule on whether or not he has to pay $88 million, which, by the way, is accumulating interest at a pretty high rate. Probably it's over $100 million. That's
what I was going to say. Yeah.
Right. His dinner guests are the ones that are going to have to decide whether or not he owes that money.
And that's not a coincidence that they are his dinner guests, right? It's also not a coincidence that he's been publicly trashing them because this is important, right? I mean, he's built the American people for so much money and he's grifted so much.
$100 million is almost real money to Donald Trump, right?
I mean, but $100 million is a lot. That's exactly what I was going to say. Despite how much he's grifted, this is a huge, huge symbolic loss if he ends up having to pay this. And B, it's a lot of money. $100 million, is a lot of money for most people on this planet. It's a lot of money. This is a big deal. So what he's done now is he's launched a criminal investigation. His DOJ, and I'm sure he'd say, I don't know anything about this, but obviously it's all being done in his direction. His DOJ has launched a criminal investigation into E. Jean Carroll over potential perjury in a 2022 deposition that she sat for, where she said, she was basically asked, and Brian can go into the details. He knows these details. One of his favorite characters, I think, was doing the questioning. And what did she say?
Correct.
I'll let you take it from there.
Elena Haba, former U.S. attorney for, I believe, the District of New Jersey.
Great legal mind. Yeah.
Right. So she's deposing her, taking a deposition. The deposition is testimony taken under oath, just as if it were be taken in a court in front of a judge or a jury. And she asked him the question, is anyone else paying your legal fees, Miss Carroll? And the answer was no. She also Miss Carroll then went on at some point in the deposition to explain that it was a contingency case, meaning that the lawyers get a percentage of her recovery and that she didn't know about attorney fees. Now, it turns out some short time later, I think about 5 or 6 months later, her lawyers come forward and say, well, wait a minute. She's now been provided with information. She's now recollected. And this is before trial, which is very important, Sean. We'll talk about that in a second. But she said she recollected additional information. And then, in fact, someone named Reid Hoffman and a nonprofit called American Future Republic. Now, Reid Hoffman, I believe, is a founder of a tech company, wealthy and hates Trump. And he was helping fund the litigation. He was paying money towards the litigation. Yeah. And so this was disclosed before trial that she had said no in a deposition when, her answer probably should have been yes. But there's a lot more to this because it isn't always as necessarily as straightforward as it sounds, because all of the evidence out there, and I'm sure you'll talk about the Second Circuit in a second, but all the evidence out there is that the money was going directly to her lawyers. It wasn't going through her. She wasn't getting the check. She wasn't handing it over to lawyers. And it was this contingency fee agreement. So it was supposed to offset the expenses of the lawyers. So did she know? Did she not know? I don't know. I don't know.
But it doesn't seem like something that the DOJ should be going around and prosecuting, because I guarantee you that happens all the time. I mean, in cases that we handle, someone says something and then they go, oh, well, that wasn't exactly right. And I think you made a good point, Brian. You reminded that before trial, the lawyers sort of disclosed and cleared up the record that she's recalled additional information. And that happens all the time in both directions, by the way. I've had clients that have said, well, that wasn't right, actually. Now that I realize it happened on this day, or I was wherever, I hadn't sent that yet, or whatever it is. It happens with the other side, too. The other side discloses in discovery later. It doesn't happen often. It's not in every case, nor is it in the majority of cases, but it happens all the time that, sorry, I know the witness said we didn't have this document, but it turns out they actually did have it. We're turning it over. You want to take more, you want to ask her more questions, go for it. You want to ask her why she forgot, go for it. That happens all the time.
Right. And they could have made an issue of it at trial. They could have tried to bring it up at trial and say that, do you contradicted yourself, and try to impeach her with that. And, as long as it's corrected before trial, it's kind of the no harm, no foul rule. But it even goes further than that, because when Trump loses, and let's just say it, loses badly, when he loses badly, he brings it up in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, the Federal Court of Appeals. And the Court of Appeals specifically said that, and I'm going to quote here, that she, quote, plausibly represented that she had forgotten about the limited outside funding counsel obtained in September of 2020, which, by the way, was 2 years before that deposition. And this question was first posed to her in 2022, and the additional discovery did not indicate otherwise. Quote, it showed that Ms. Carroll simply was not involved in the matter of who was or was not funding her litigation costs, close quote. It was a contingency fee agreement. I mean, it'd be one thing, Sean, if somebody every month was writing a check to a lawyer, sitting there in their checkbook writing a check, and all of a sudden, for many, many months, didn't have to write a check because someone else was funding it. You might go, oh, I don't know who's paying for this. But this was some kind of a side agreement that existed here to help fund the litigation.
It sounds like her agreement with her lawyers was a contingency fee agreement, which is not uncommon in cases like this. And perhaps the Reid Hoffman or whatever organization's funding was to help the lawyers advance the costs associated with the case, which is also not uncommon. The arrangements like this occur all the time. And even though she may have signed off on it, because I think maybe ethical rules require that the client be made aware of it and even approve it in some states. Even if she had signed off on it, I mean, that's such an intricate detail that she doesn't understand that. And oftentimes we have clients, sophisticated clients that don't understand the intricacies of things that are happening in the background of the case.
It's not a bombshell. That's the other thing, is this isn't a bombshell that suddenly came out of nowhere that completely changes the course of things. Now, of course, people are supposed to tell the truth, and your deposition and your testifying, you're supposed to tell the truth.
I'll give an example of something that would have been relevant and it would be a bombshell, and even I'd be surprised by it. If she later admitted or it came out that she got paid money to tell this story or something, like make up a story or something like that. that's
Right.
like, just totally lost. Like something
Or
like,
if she got
Sure.
some of this money that was paid by Reid Hoffman, if she got some of this money, then
Sure.
it went into her pocket. That would be a bombshell.
Yeah.
But it sounds like all the evidence is went to the lawyers. Now, question. The Court of Appeals already dismissed this and said this isn't perjury. It isn't grounds to turn over the case. Yet they're still going after her.
yeah, I mean,
Why?
that raises well, first of all, from a strategy and moral perspective, yeah, that raises an important question. Why would they do this? It's kind of stupid. This issue's already been
Is it
addressed by
because
courts.
Trump wants a third lawsuit?
Yeah, maybe for malicious prosecution or something like that. But also, isn't there some sort of binding legal effect of the Court of Appeals making that finding that this is irrelevant, this doesn't change
Yeah,
it?
it's possible
Maybe.
that it's collateral
Maybe.
estoppel. It's
Right.
possible that what we call collateral estoppel, issue preclusion, that it's already been decided, actively decided. This is another example of what I call talc, as opposed to Trump always chickens out, talc. Trump always loses cases.
Instead of
This is going
taco?
to be another, right. This is going to be another one.
Yeah.
Talc. He's
Yeah.
going to lose this. He's going to, and you know who's going to be able to make a claim on the non-weaponization fund called the Treasury of the United States of America?
Yeah, Eugene Carroll.
Carroll.
Exactly. Yeah, talk about weaponization, right? This couldn't come at a more ironic and hypocritical moment in time where Trump's giving away billions of dollars to people and saying it's anti-weaponization money while he's literally weaponizing the DOJ. I mean, it's kind of wild. There's no parallel to this. There's no good, the both sides argument. There's no example of Biden ever doing something to this extent. So this is kind of wild, but we'll cover this. Stay tuned for more. Our prediction is, though, it's not that bold of a prediction because it happens all the time that Trump's going to lose because he loses cases. That's just what he does. So stay tuned. We'll cover this on another installment of Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. I'm Sean Kernigan. That over there is Brian Kabatek, my law partner and co-host. We're a couple of lawyers based out of Los Angeles, California. Kabatek LLP. Check us out online, kbklawyers.com. Find me on Instagram and follow me there. Shant_K is my username there. Reach out if you have any questions, you want to talk. We love hearing from you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.